Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Gran Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Gran Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Gran Group by emailing thegran, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Gran Group with Edina Realty, three-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' five-game series against the Detroit Tigers. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins lose 4 out of 5 to the Detroit Tigers. They destroy the opportunity to add some cushion to their lead before their toughest stretch of the season. Dan, the offense all but disappeared in 4 out of 5 games. 4 for 25 with runners in scoring position, 45 Ks. Dan, it was the B team for the Twins, both in regards to players and broadcasters for this series. Let me tell you, Dan, nobody wanted a part of this 5-game series. The players, the broadcasters, this was a terrible stretch of games, Dan Thompson.
It was against, arguably some of the worst teams in baseball right now. These are the ones that we thought they were going to be winning, but how are they supposed to beat this team, really any team, when they've got so few healthy players?
It's pretty nuts, Dan. Every time I update this spreadsheet and I have to keep looking back at the roster and I'm figuring out, okay, who was called up, how many guys, what level of IL does this guy go on at this point? Is it 10 days? Is it 15 days? Is it COVID? Is it 60 days? It's getting real frustrating, Dan.
And now they're going to go to Toronto, and we don't even know for sure yet, as of recording here, what guys are actually going to make that trip. So good luck with this one.
We should jump into it. We got to go through these games, all 5 of them. I don't want to go through any of them, Dan, if I'm being honest with you.
Series recap.
Everything starts, and it seems to be going okay, right? Like the Twins looked like they were in this game. Twins end up losing this one 7-5. Bundy's on the mound. He doesn't look great, but he does get through 6. He gives up 4 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, but 9 hits. Then Smith comes in and McGill to finish out. But the Twins just can't get it together, Dan. Again, in this game, they went 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. And your guy Garlic, Dan, who's going to feature pretty heavily in this episode, I'm guessing here, grounds into a double play. Not a good day for the Twins.
Not a good day. Even, Luis Ariz was only 1 for 4. I guess he still had a walk. Luis Ariz, though, for him, that's a bad day. Larnach was 0 for 3 in kind of the heart of the lineup. They were really relying on power here because Sanchez, Miranda, Urshela all had home runs. But again, because they only had 4 chances with runners in scoring position, only left 6 guys on. Like, there just weren't that many chances. It's just that the game really got away from there, especially because of some fielding errors.
Well, there was the play. You have to go back and watch the replay, folks. It's featured, I think, on the game highlight as far as this game is concerned. But there's a ball hit to Miranda who's shaded towards second base. So he makes the play on the ball. Joe Smith is on the mound, and he's making his way to first base. Now, first of all, a quick caveat. Even if they execute perfectly, there's no guarantee that Joe Smith gets to the bag before the runner. However, Miranda inexplicably chucks the ball a foot behind Joe Smith. I mean, nowhere near where that ball needed to be. And again, we're not talking about a long throw here, Dan. We're talking about like 12 feet he needed to clear.
It's important, I think, that people remember he's a third baseman by trade. He's not a first baseman in the way that any of the other Twins players are. And granted, Luis Ariz isn't either, but dare I say they're missing Miguel Sano's defense here on this team?
Dan, you can't. This is going to be a long episode. You can't start with ridiculous statements right off the bat like this. You're getting me all worked up. Do you remember
Miguel Sano?
Yes, do I remember Miguel Sano? No, it's a memory I'd like to forget, Dan Thompson.
Well, he was injured, by the way, celebrating a walk-off against the Tigers earlier this season, just so that's on the table. But anyway, again, yeah, disappointing because then Urshela also commits an error later. And the Tigers, I mean, they had 13 hits. They got plenty of base runners, and the Twins just kind of gave this one away.
There's another play that if you're going to watch replays of just like funny things that the Twins fielders decided to do, who slipped Kyle Garlic money here? Because Garlic is playing left field, and there's a ball hit by Hill, and it's deep, and it's to the wall, and Garlic seems to have a read on it, and he jumps up, and more or less from what I figured, Dan, he basically threw the ball over the fence. Like it wasn't like it sort of tapped off his glove. It looked more like he like had the ball and he's like, you know what, let's just go ahead and give him this home run. It is a ridiculous play. And I do want to say, if Buxton was in center, he steals that ball. Like he makes that catch. I don't think he lets Garlic go after it.
No, and this is the problem when you are playing so many backups, is that guys are playing up in ways that we wouldn't expect them to normally play, and this is how that seeps through. It's in the routine or the good that becomes botched, and that's what we saw of a lot, not just in this game, but in this whole series.
Lone bright spot for me, Dan, in this game, I called the Urshela home run. I was playing some games with some buddies, and the game was on, and I said, okay, Twins are down 1, they need a big hit, and Urshela's up at the plate, he's probably going to hit a home run. Lo and behold, there he goes, Dan Thompson.
And there he goes. Well, let's go to game 2. This was a doubleheader. So this is how it was a 5-game series, because they had a game 1 and then they had a doubleheader and then 2 more games. So they smashed 5 into 4 essentially. But they were full games, David. A much more satisfying way to watch baseball.
Couldn't agree more, Dan. Twins come away with this first one 8-2. Devin Smeltzer, Dan. Again, the guy who definitely doesn't want to try and have to clear waivers to get back down to AAA, goes 6 2/3, 6 hits, 2 runs, both of them earned, 4 strikeouts, and just honestly, a very, very good game from Smeltzer, and he finally got some offensive production to help him out.
He did, and the broadcasting teams, as we alluded to, they looked very different. Jim Cott was actually calling the TV games to go with Dick Bramer, and he pointed out something about how Smeltzer was working so quickly, and he I think very wisely said, well, Smeltzer has spent some time at AAA, where they do have a pitch clock, and we saw him, and when we saw Cole Sands work pretty quickly, this game was over in 2 hours and 46 minutes, which for an 8-2 game is a pretty quick pace.
Totally, and you'll notice each of the games this series, actually, the longest game was game 1, Dan, at 3 hours, 4 minutes, which is not a long baseball game.
Well, this was old-style baseball, though, David, where there were basically no runs scored after game 2, it felt like. Certainly for the Twins, there was almost nothing left. Kepler did look good in this game. He was excellent, but I think it was the only game he played in the whole series, inexplicably. He goes 3 for 4 with a couple runs, 3 RBI. He was DHing, though. He never actually got into the field. And so that is a little bit concerning. And I should say, he did DH in game 5, but we still haven't seen him out in the outfield, and they do need his fielding.
Yes, it's very evident. I mean, as guys continue to fall, you need to have some guys who might be injured or might be dealing with something. They might need to play through it here, Dan, just to give the Twins some hope.
And who'd have thought that the Twins would field a new shortstop that wasn't Carlos Correa or Royce Lewis? Jermaine Palacios makes his major league debut. I think he might play every game the rest of the season, it seems, at shortstop.
I thought about this quite a bit, because there is no way in his mind that he thought he would start any games for the Twins this season.
No.
Not a chance. Not a chance. So Correa goes down, Lewis goes down, all of a sudden the phone rings. It's like, what's happening here? I'm wondering the mindset there, right? Because if you're a guy at AAA and you know that you're going to be next guy up, you're sort of always not hoping for an injury, obviously, but you're hoping for a chance, really, regardless of how you get it, if we're honest here. Every guy wants a chance. But when you're like 3 guys down that list, you're not thinking that phone's going to ring.
And we were texting a little bit about this too. Isn't it ironic that Royce Lewis, had he lasted one more day in AAA and not pull, it's like, I get why the Twins wanted to pull him up there, but man, he could be starting at shortstop right now.
I don't even know how to understand it, Dan. Isn't it ironic when it rains on your wedding day? It's just
that's not okay. We're not going to get into Alanis Morissette's song, but we don't have enough time for that. There was one other thing we wanted to talk about here in this game. Was Devin Smeltzer got quite the call from the home plate umpire. I mean, that ball was probably 6 inches below the strike zone. It
was a fastball, wasn't even a breaking ball, and everybody was confused. Everybody was confused. Nobody thought that was a strike. And like you said, Cott was on the broadcast and he was just baffled. He's like, well, Smeltzer got a little help with that one. A little help, Dan. That was worse than some of the first pitches you see from people who are standing 10 feet from home plate. It was bad, and they gave him a strike.
Well, let's move into game 3, a regrettable game 3. The Twins lose this one 4-0. They only muster 3 hits.
Okay, here's my thing, Dan. You make fun of me because I had said one time that you could turn a baseball game off after a certain inning, right? You're telling me right now, if you knew what happened in this game, you would watch any of it, let alone into the 2 innings in which there was scoring for the Tigers in the first and the second?
I'm going to admit I didn't pay much close attention to this game. I was following it a little bit. The Tigers get those runs, and then, I did have some hope because of the lineup that the Twins trotted out here, because Buxton played, he DH'd, and then it was Arise, Garlic, Polanco, Larnach. That's not a bad lineup. You would think they'd produce some runs here against a guy who came in with a pretty high ERA. I mean, the Tiger starter Wentz, his ERA improved to 8.10 after this 4-inning outing for him. So really surprising they weren't able to score some runs against this guy.
I don't want to talk anymore about this game, Dan.
Okay, well, let's move on to game 4. Game 4 was not a bunch better.
I don't want to talk about this game, Dan.
Well, I'll chip in here a little bit. So the Twins lose this one 5-0. Only 2 hits. It actually got worse than the game before. Bailey Ober wasn't as sharp as the Twins would like him to be. He goes 6 innings, but he gives up 9 hits, 5 runs, 4 strikeouts. His ERA has climbed above 4. McGill came in and did all right to kind of close the game out, so they didn't have to burn more arms. But again, and this one too, I think that they trotted out definitely the B team lineup here, David.
Watching this game, the very first pitch of the game that I saw overthrow, I was like, uh-oh. He didn't have his best stuff. It was obvious. From the get-go, the Tigers were on him. It was bad, Dan. It was just bad. It was definitely, I would say, his worst outing that a team probably could have punished him even more than they did.
Well, and he will be starting, one of these next 2 series. I guess it would be the one after. He'll play against the Yankees. He's going to have to be a whole lot better.
I'm trying to hold off talking about the next couple of series here, Dan. I'm not feeling so confident going into those.
Well, then let's look at Game 5 because Game 5 did look much more promising. The Twins led this one 2-1 all the way to the 8th inning. I actually went to get lunch real quick, and then I came back and the Twins were behind and they were down a batter in the 9th inning.
Terrible, Dan. Twins lose this one 3-2. And what's most disappointing, Dan, your guy, Chris Archer, pitched 5 innings.
Why is he my guy? How did he become my guy?
He's your guy. He's your guy, Dan. Certainly.
Well, he did go 5 innings, which it was impressive, and he threw only 57 pitches. I mean, that's a very efficient outing.
It has to be if he's ever going to get past 4, Dan, because Rocco pulls him before he gets to 60.
And the irony, of course, is that he's in line to get the win here. And what was so disappointing here is that Pagan comes in, and it's not like Pagan's been used. Pagan hadn't even pitched in the series until this, and he gives up a home run to Daz Cameron, who, another one of those baseball players, David, I remember his father, Mike Cameron, playing vividly. It feels like Mike Cameron was still playing a couple years ago. And here's his son out here.
Quick note on the broadcast. So this is the radio broadcast. I was in the office today, so I was listening to the game on the radio. And let me tell you, Dan, it would be difficult to choose a worse pairing for a baseball radio broadcast than Dan Gladden and Tim Lautner. It was like these two guys were lost, and they somehow found microphones, and they were like, "Hey, we should talk about this baseball game a little bit." I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I have one highlight that I just have to say, because Dan Gladden is talking about Chris Archer's strikeouts, and Dan Gladden says coming into the game that Chris Archer has 1,999 strikeouts, okay, in his career. And then after Archer registers a strikeout, Dan Gladden goes, and that was Archer's 4,000th strikeout in his career. And I'm like, what? 4,000? What is happening? Not a clue. But then what makes it worse, Gladden has to go back and correct this. And he says, oh, actually, to start the game, he was at 1,399 strikeouts. And now his total is 1,400 strikeouts. It's like, he couldn't get the math right, Dan. There was no hope that he was going to get the right numbers coming out of his mouth in regards to Chris Archer and his career strikeout numbers.
For the record, if that were his 4,000th strikeout, he would be 5th all time in strikeouts. What this reminds me of is that there is talent to being a play-by-play guy that is different than being a baseball player who comes in and does commentary on the radio.
Yes.
Corey Provus is a pro. Yeah. We will never say a bad word about Corey Provus again on this broadcast.
So yeah, I don't mean to be too harsh. And like honestly, yeah, as a color guy, I like Laudner and I like Gladden. And Laudner had some interesting perspectives on the catcher and the new electronic signaling system to the pitcher. However, you can't have two ex-MLB players, Dan, doing the baseball announcing. It just doesn't work.
All right, well, David, we've spent long enough talking about these games. Let's go into Puckett's Picks.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
I'm boycotting. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's not fair. It's stupid.
Should we start picking backups here for the Puckett's Picks just in case?
Quite frustrating. So, folks, I took Correa, okay, and I'm thinking I have a good, solid chance here. And then Correa ends up on the COVID list, but he ends up on the COVID list after the picks have been made and there wasn't enough time to get an alternate pick in. So here's the thing. I would be less upset if it seemed like he would have lost anyway. But the listeners win this one with a rise with 2 points. 2 points. Dan loses with Buxton, who has 1 point. So I come in last, for picking a guy who didn't play, and I almost won anyway.
I know, and the irony, and we'll talk about this later, Buxton came in and pinch hit, and he struck out. And without that strikeout, I'm actually tied here. I didn't do the math on the tiebreaker, but good for the listeners. They hadn't won in a long time. So Luis Arraez wins this one. I guess I can do the standings here. So, David, you still have the lead overall in the season. You have 7. I have 5. The listeners now have 4. And so we're back on track.
Back on track? What does that even mean, Dan Thompson?
Well, it means it's more competitive now.
Okay.
Right? The listeners needed to win one here. So.
All right, well, let's keep going, Dan. Beast versus bench.
Beast versus bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
David, I'm going to be honest. I don't have a lot to say here. I am giving my beast to Kepler because he had one good game. Like I said, he played in Game 5 too, but he was 3 for 4 with a 3 RBI in Game 2. And then I don't really know of anybody else who did much to contribute to this team.
Well, I'm going to take Scope, I think. He had a really great
He
performance.
no longer plays for the Twins, David.
Oh, shoot.
Sorry.
Man, we didn't need him. Didn't need him. Quite disappointing, but Scope did have a very good series, both in the field
he
and
did. Always
at the
seems
plate.
to against the Twins.
It does seem like he has an extra chip on his shoulder, certainly, right?
And what about your bench?
Oh, no, I should probably give the Beast moniker to somebody.
You should. I'm sorry. You want to give it to an actual Twins player?
I'm going to give it to Urshela, I think. One, because he heard me call his home run, and he decided to hit it for me, which was great. And he's very good in the field. I think he did have an error in this series, but it was only his 4th error on the season, I think. And some of the plays that guy makes, Dan, is just spectacular.
Well, and you could argue on that play, too, because he was off his bottom, I think, that he threw the ball. Miranda should have come off the bag. That was a costly error because it ended up at least 1 run scored on that play. And so, not a great play by Urshela, but I would put some blame on Miranda there, too.
Who do you got on your bench, Dan?
I went with Kyle Garlick, and here's why. So he was 0 for 5 in Game 1, and then he didn't play in Game 2, but in Game 3, he's out there against a lefty, and he goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. He has to be mashing lefties, otherwise he is just not very valuable on this team.
No, he's got to be mashing taters or lefties, Dan, and if he's not mashing either, he should be down in AAA.
Well, yeah, and then he was 0 for 4 in Game 4, and then in Game 5, he came in and he pinch hit, and he didn't get a hit there either. His average is down to 211, his OPS to 731.
However, if there were awards given, Dan, for closest home runs, Kyle Garlick, I think, would be in the running this season.
He has had some close ones. That's true. Who did you put on your bench?
Yeah, so I think Garlick is probably the most deserving. I'm going to give it to Pagan, just because, my goodness, you give up a home run to Cameron, .195 batting average again, no home runs on the season, 85 miles an hour, middle. What are you doing in that circumstance, even giving the guy an opportunity? He's the number 9 batter, for crying out loud, Dan. You finally have a chance to at least salvage something out of this series, and you're throwing cookies over the mound like that? Disgusting, Dan Thompson.
Fans want an ejection. There it goes.
And that was Gardy's gripe.
Are you going to start referring to everybody's batting average with a dot at the beginning of it, too?
You know, I think
it's
I picked
always
that up.
Dot. It always starts with a dot.
It's got to have that dot. I don't know. Like, what's his name? John Boy Media started doing that, and I really like it. I don't know. I like it.
All right, well, let's go to Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
So for me, this is as much a question as it is an observation about Rocco. So he pinch hit Buxton here in this series, which was the first time that we'd seen Buxton pinch hit during this Buxton keep him healthy treatment plan. He struck out. But my question to you, is this a turning point in Buxton's health, or is it just a change in Rocco's managing?
I think that Buxton is realizing that he may not get to 100%, and so he wants the opportunity to succeed in those big game situations. I think Rocco has been pressured a bit by Buxton. I'm guessing that Buxton's like, here's the deal. My knee's jacked up. I don't know that me not swinging one time in a game is really going to fix it in the short term. So I think Buxton is just like, give me the opportunities.
No, and I was impressed that Buxton played games 2 and games 3. I thought that was actually pretty smart because he's already kind of stretched out. He's played earlier in the day. I thought that was good. He does end up sitting game 4, but he comes back for game 5 and is playing center again. So I'm encouraged by his health. What did you have for Rocco?
Yeah, so I got to say, letting Smeltzer go into the 7th in game 2, I think was wise. Twins are up big. Let him see what he can do. And then only having to use Jax then to finish out that game was huge, even though obviously in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really matter because it didn't matter which pitchers were throughout there. It doesn't matter how many pitchers you use if your offense can't score any runs. And then also letting Archer get into the 5th was good to see. But really, there was nothing that Rocco could have done in this series that would have fixed any problems because all of the issues stemmed from the plate.
Yeah, and I think, too, the Twins could point to games 1 and games 5 as games that they could win in this if the bullpen actually locks down. But the bottom line is that the offense just wasn't good enough here to win any more than the one, really.
All right, well, let's keep going down. Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
I'm gonna actually just piggyback real quick. It's got to be Smeltzer's start, Dan. It was truly the lone bright spot getting into the 7th inning, and really just a guy who you can tell wants to be here at the major league level, and he's gonna have a true test here coming up, Dan, against this next stretch.
I think he even gets another start after that. I think he's earned that. His ERA is 1.5.
Well, and they don't have
That's a
any
pretty
other
dang good
bodies,
ERA.
Dan. Always helps the cause.
They don't, right? Because we haven't talked about this. So Joe Ryan is not yet back. And now we've got Sonny Gray is on the injured list after seemingly lobbying to stay on after that pectoral issue. So they're down arguably their two best starters. We'll probably see Cole Sands for another turn. And again, not a great time to be missing starting pitchers.
No, and especially if any of them aren't vaxxed, and so they can't make the trip to Toronto, these next few games in are going to get real interesting real fast.
We'll see. We have to remember that it's only June, and the Twins do still have a 4.5 game lead in the Central.
True story, Dan. What do you got for your moment?
I just think it's ironic that Archer finally goes 5 innings and he doesn't get the win, right? Like poor Chris Archer here. He had pitched well enough here. He would have gotten the win by, I think, all of our systems, regardless of whose we were deciding, the scorekeepers or our own. Archer deserved the win here. And I will say this. I think he's going to actually stick around in this season. We've talked about him for a long time. Now, attrition might be part of this, but I think Chris Archer has done enough to say, hey, he deserves that 4th or 5th spot in the rotation.
I have to point out, you just called it our system.
Well, I did because I've embraced it. Now I'm with you again on this.
I know. I just love how many times you've mocked me about my concerns for the way that we score wins and give wins to pitchers, and all of a sudden Dan does the quick side switch. Our system.
It is. It's ours now, David, because I'm on board, and therefore it's not just you, it's us. It's us, David.
It's us. Oh, wonderful, Dan. I love it when it's us. Let's keep going. Maurer's musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Maurer's musings.
David, is this team, when healthy, a team that can win a playoff series?
First of all, do you think we have seen this team fully healthy yet this season?
Not really. Right.
Yeah.
Because to me, healthy says that Joe Ryan and Sonny Gray are pitching, right, together, which has been a pretty rare occasion. So those guys. And then you've got to say you have Correa healthy. And then, we talked about Royce Lewis in previous episodes, whether he's really core to this team. I don't think that he's core to this one. So I think we've seen it pretty close with the lineup. Well, no, because we have it. Well, because Sano and Kirilloff are guys, like, we just don't know what this team actually is yet.
When you're forgetting that Buxton has nary been 100%, I'd say.
Right.
And
maybe
Maeda also on the 60-day IL, who could potentially still return this season.
So, and not to mention Randy Dobnak, David. We haven't even brought him into the podcast
We
yet.
haven't. I don't know what the deal is. That was so weird. It's like an injury to his finger. It's like a paper cut that just won't heal. I don't know what the deal is for Randy
Well, are you going to
Dobnak.
answer my question then? Do you think they can win a playoff series?
If they were at 100% health and all of the guys who we just listed who aren't currently playing for the Twins or who haven't played to their fullest potential this season, yes, they can win a playoff series. However, what will this team look like, assuming they get to the postseason, Dan, is anybody's guess. What I will say about Royce Lewis is that he likely would have been on the playoff roster, right? So we may not know where he would have played, but he would have been on that roster almost without a doubt, I'd say.
The number of caveats there, David, that you added before
Necessary.
that.
Necessary,
Yeah,
Dan.
yeah.
Because otherwise the answer is no. Otherwise, the answer is no. What's your answer?
I think I have the exact same answer in that sense. I don't think that they can right now. And I also question whether they're really going to be fully healthy heading into the playoffs. But who else is going to catch them in this division, at least? I mean, like, that's really big to win a division now in this new playoff format is really crucial. Even if you're the third and you're hosting, at least you're hosting the whole 3-game series.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your question?
Here's the thing. We have said thus far this season, Dan, that the Twins really haven't played anyone. Like, they played the Dodgers and they played the Astros and then they played Boston and the Rays, I mean, who you could say are better than most. So we've been also heckled about this, that saying that the Twins haven't played anybody. Well, because they've mostly played AL Central opponents and like the Athletics. Like that's not a great Baltimore, I guess too. Like it's not this powerhouse schedule that we've played against. But so this next stretch, Dan, is rough. So they go to Toronto, home against the Yankees, and then they find themselves against the Rays again at home. So they'll have a 6-game homestand, but it's against the Yankees and the Rays. So 9 games, Dan Thompson. against these three opponents, what would you consider a successful result through these next 9 games?
I think 4 and 5. I think if they can kind of tread water through it, again, because they're probably not going to have, they could get a start out of Sonny Gray late in that. Actually, no, they can't. I don't even think Sonny Gray would be back in time for any of this. So there's no Sonny Gray. Joe Ryan hopefully is back. You're going to need some dang good pitching out of this team to be close. Not to mention, you're going to want Correa back at some point in here. I mean, Celestino will come back. They have so little depth right now on this team. I have a hard time saying they're going to win more than 4.
If they go 4 and 5, I'd be thrilled, Dan. Honestly, I would be ecstatic. I'm hoping, Dan, that they take 1 from each of these series while their guys get healthy. And again, I just wish that they would have built more of a buffer in this 5-game series against a far, far superior Detroit Tigers team.
I think so too. And the irony, of course, if you put our questions together, is that this would be a great test to know how they would fare against some of these playoff
Correct.
teams.
Yeah.
And we're not going to find out because we're just not going to get a fair shake from this Twins roster. All right, David. Well, it's time. We have to go back to this Tigers series and grade it.
Series grades.
It's a D-. I mean, they won a game. I want to give them an F. No, forget this. It's an F. This is a failure. You lost 4 of 5 to the Tigers, Dan. They're 8 games back. What are you doing? You got to scrape together at least 2 wins out of this series. This is a failure, Dan Thompson.
D. I would call it a D because they're so shorthanded. I'm going to give them the D. They're on the road. Not that Detroit is a hostile place, but we'll call it a D, and we'll see where they go from here.
I'm glad that we have our balance back a little bit here, Dan. You were a little curmudgeonly last episode. It was a little bit off.
Level-headed
I felt a little bit
again.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know. I'm cranky. I'm sleepy. What do you want me to do here, Dan?
All right, so time for Herbie's headline.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
Dan, it's the gift that just keeps giving. My goodness. So now Mike Trout, we find out, Dan, the worst commissioner in fantasy sports is what I understand. Dan, I don't understand this. This is hilarious. But anytime you have a guy showing text threads and GIFs that he sent to other MLB players in post-game interviews to discuss why he got slapped on the field, something has gone wrong. There's something just off about this whole situation.
Well, I think the buy-in to this league was like $10,000 or something like that, which $10,000?
You remove about 3 zeros from that. That's my typical buy-in, Dan.
Oh my gosh. So Mike Trout then holds a press conference, but then really says nothing about this thing. I don't know. It's hard for me to pick a side here because neither of the guys, and this is not Mike Trout, but Tommy Pham and Jock Peterson, neither of them seem like great people to hang out with or even be in a fantasy league with. Like, what the heck?
It's pretty hilarious. And yes, I think you're right, though, that so much of this just stems from there being so much money on the line. And it's easy to think that, what's $10,000 to these guys who are making millions? But really, remember, you always got to remember with athletes, their earning potential is a very limited number of years, and that can dwindle very quickly, especially if your career takes a turn for the worse. So I can understand why guys are still getting hot-headed about money. Dan, is there anybody in your life who you even know who doesn't get somewhat stressed about money if things are difficult?
I guess it does bring out maybe the worst in people, and it's clearly brought out the worst in these guys. Jock Peterson has this smugness about this that makes me think there's more to it that I don't understand. So I'm not trying to pick a side here on this, but it is interesting drama that has nothing to do with baseball.
No.
And everything to do with, what does this have to do with, David? I don't even know.
I have no idea, but I think you're 100% right that people are having a hard time I don't even know how to say it. People are having a hard time being on Jock Peterson's side because it does look like there's these subtle undertones of things happening that we're just not aware of.
All right, David, we have to move to Puckett's picks with an asterisk, I think.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's picks.
Here's the deal, folks. We didn't want to do Puckett's picks prior to us knowing who's actually going to be playing in the series in Toronto. And not just who's going to be playing generally, but because of the weird vaccination status and some guys not traveling with the team, the Twins still have not released that. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait until the Twins announce the lineups and who actually made the trip with the team, and then we'll make the picks. I realize not great podcasting material to tell you that, hey, we're not going to do this segment, but I don't know how else to handle this without us each giving 6 names and then just hoping one of those guys plays.
What a weird thing, David. What a weird thing that this is. Well, with that, David, I think it's time for you to send us out.
Will do. Thank you, sir. Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on Twitter at Men for the Win and find our Men for the Win Facebook page. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast to be notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating, that'd be great. A reminder that episodes are now available on our YouTube channel. And if you could drop us a like and a subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks for listening. And as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.